Right, so there's a few of us here now. So let's get started then, and let me tell you about kind of my thoughts about today. So today obviously is International Women's Day. So I thought I'd start today. Hi Laura, good to see you. I thought I'd start today a little bit about some women who have really inspired me on my journey. And then I thought I would show you two books which have got the most brilliant, strong, independent young ladies in that I think your children will love. But today, as we think about the women of the world and the women who have inspired us, I thought I would do a little tiny bit of a history lesson for you to really think about the amazing women who have led us to where we are today in the world of early years. If my computer makes a funny noise, I do apologise. I've sort of got you resting on my computer. So, I wish my friend Catherine Solly was here, but I don't think she's on Instagram. But I know she would love a bit of this. I've got my notes up here, by the way, if you wonder why I'm looking away. So if we're thinking about keeping early years unique, we're a big Facebook page, and I hope some of you are members of over there. If you're not, please come on over and join. Do you know what? We're about to hit 50,000 members, and 97.7% of our members are women. Now, I wish we had more men, and I wish we had more men working in our sector. But if we think about keeping early years unique as a movement, which is what it's become over the past sort of nearly 6 years now, 97.7% of nearly 50,000 women coming together to stand up for early years. And it led me back to thinking, actually, how did we get here? Who is it that has... oh, thank you, Laura. That's a lovely thing to say. It's very kind of you, darling. Thank you. Who is it that's inspired me and hopefully inspired some of you along the way? So... anyone's a big R&B fan like me, back in the day, Blackstreet used to say, let's go back, way back. And if we go back in time and we think about the marvellous McMillan sisters, okay, Margaret and Rachel McMillan, who really founded the nursery movement, and the Rachel McMillan College for Teacher Training. So, these were two sisters who didn't have, they kind of lost their parents when they were quite young, and they saw in society what was happening. They saw the poverty of London and they decided to do something about it. And they really, they were outspoken and they stood up to be counted. And I was reading a bit about them, and it's because of them that we have the Free School Meals Act. And they campaigned for that, and they campaigned for children to have medical checks and to be supported. So people like the McMillan sisters, we might not be aware of it, but they are such a massive part of our journey. If we then think about Montessori and her work, and how Montessori, began working with children with special needs, and children who many people viewed, you couldn't educate them really, they were sort of beyond help. And how she wouldn't give up on them, and how she kept fighting for them, and how she really understood child development, and Montessori really understood the power of observation, and her work on environments, and her work on independence and sensory. So, today we might not realise it. You might not know a lot about these pioneers, but they influence you each and every day. And we've got Mandy here who's saying that when she first started in early years, they really inspired her to support the children she works with. So, we've got the McMillan sisters, we've got Montessori. And then we come on to Susan Isaacs, who my friend Catherine, Catherine is, she knows everything about Susan Isaacs. But Susan Isaacs, again, was all about observation, all about holistic development of young children. And she was all about play as a child's work. Again, a really big part of the nursery school movement. Again, really focused, like Montessori, on the power of the environment, the crucial role of adults, the importance of the natural world and children being in nature. And some of you may not know that Susan Isaacs was actually otherwise known in nursery world as Ursula Wise. She was actually an agony aunt back in the day. And then if we think about Reggio, Emilia, the work that happened there, and actually how instrumental the women were in that Italian village, and how they wanted better, and how they wanted a new form of education, and how they literally, with other villagers, built schools and started shaping something very different. You know, the preschools, the mother and babies, the schools. So do you know what? There are so many women, so many strong, powerful, outspoken women who have been standing up for early years, standing up for our children for years and years and years gone by. And they may no longer be here, but they have passed the baton to us. And now we have to take that baton and we have to continue their work to be advocates for our children. And when we see what's happening in the world of early years, when we see the top-down pressures that are coming to our children, when we see baseline testing, when we see Ofsted's Bold Beginning report, when we see how the EYFS is being rewritten, we have to ask ourselves the question, what would Montessori say? What would Isaac say? What would the McMillan sisters say? What would those mothers, those women in Reggio, Emilia, what would they say? Would they stand back and stand for this? Would they stand back and see 4-year-olds tested in school and see 4-year-olds having phonics drilled into them? No, they wouldn't stand for it. They would be out there, they would be petitioning, they would be marching, they would be saying no. And in their little corner of the world, they would be making a stand against this sort of absolute nonsense. But they're no longer here. And what worries me, the sector that we work in, I think sometimes we get quite beaten down and we think, oh, well, that's how it is. It's not how it is. It's not how it has to be. So we have to keep on going. These amazing women, these amazing pioneers whose shoulders we stand upon would not stand for it, and neither must we. And that brings me to the voices of now, or the more current voices that have really inspired me and influenced me. And if I go back actually to my, as I think I mentioned to you last week, my NNEB training that I did all those years ago. When I was training to be a nursery nurse, and I know a few of you are going to say, oh yes, NNEB, we always have that little moment, don't we, where yes, nursery nursing. Mary Sheridan's work, her study of children, her study of child development still influences me today. And I think a big cause for concern is a lot of people now, a lot of teachers working in early years don't have that child development training. So Mary Sheridan, these are really old books. So if you can see, this was like a 1960s version. It's even got my old maiden name on. You know, when I began my NNEB, we were told we had to have these books. So we had to have this one, which actually was a Department of Health and Social Security publication, Mary Sheridan. And we had to have this one. And we had to study these, and you can see here that actually I had these on my home visits when I was in my training. We had to spend 2 weeks, not 2 weeks, I'm lying, sorry, a term in someone's home as a nanny, and one of my charges got hold of this book. But goodness me, the hours I spent poring over this book, the hours I spent observing the children that I worked with, whether they were in school or preschool or special school or a family centre or a home environment, and I would study and I would watch these children, and then I'd have to go home and I would have to write up my observation and I would have to reference it to Mary Sheridan. And I would say, according to Dr. Mary Sheridan, a child at this age should be blah de blah de blah. So I had to study that inside out, and it stays with me today. And then her work still goes on being printed into more recent versions, well, even newer ones than this now. So if you're not familiar with Mary Sheridan, please look it up. And actually, if I go back a minute to those pioneers, if you want to know more about the pioneers, and I would urge you to do a bit more reading into the pioneers, you know, you need to know why we are doing what we do. There are some really great books around pioneers that sum it up. So this one is a Routledge book called Pioneers in Early Childhood Education. And this one is particularly focused on the McMillan sisters, Montessori and Isaacs. So if you want to know more about their work, this is a really good place to start. This one is also excellent. This one's called Learning Theories for Early Years Practice by Sean McBlain. This one is brilliant because this one actually gives you an overview of all different theorists over time. past and present, and it also tells a little bit about actually what does their work mean, what does it look like in practice. So in practice, what does Montessori look like? In practice, what does Froebel look like? So there's some, you know, if you want to learn more about how we've got to where we are, these are really great books you can dip into. Linda Pounds also done some very accessible ones for you. It's really worth knowing, okay? So let's think about now then, the pioneers of now, the women who now are out there challenging and inspiring us. Any of you familiar with Upstart? Oh, we've got Kim's here. Oh, Kim's saying that apparently Pam Jarvis has written one as well about early years pioneers in context. So let's look that up. Pam is fantastic. If you don't follow Pam on Twitter, you need to follow Pam. She's great, isn't she, Kim? I love reading her work. At the moment in Scotland, Sue Palmer, let me hold it up there for you, leading a real movement, actually, and a movement that inspired me. I am on one, Kim. Oh, you are one, Elaine. Oh, thank you, Kim. Sorry, I'm not very good at multitasking. Play is the way. So Sue Palmer, it was Sue Palmer's Upstart movement, which really inspired me with keeping early years unique. So Upstart is a movement in Scotland, campaigning for a kindergarten stage 3 to 7. This is the most recent book from Upstart, Play is the Way. It's got chapters from a whole range of people really advocating why play is so important. So I would really recommend looking up Upstart and looking on, having a look at this book and getting involved with Upstart. Also, a big part of Upstart is Suzanne Zidike, who does a lot of work on attachment theory. So again, really important. And the work of Upstart is having a huge impact in Scotland. And the reason it's so powerful is because it's something different. You've got the police involved, you've got psychologists involved, you've got, you know, the sector on the ground like us involved. And I really think that Upstart can really do something amazing in Scotland. In fact, sometimes I think about moving up there myself, because they definitely seem to be streets ahead of us in so many ways, including with their realising the ambition work they're doing at the moment. So Sue Palmer, definitely. Brilliant. Right, who else have I got for you? Also, another lady who really inspires me and who I'm really quite excited about her work at the moment is Laura Henry Elaine. Now, Laura, you may not be familiar with Laura, but Laura is behind the fantastic TV programme on CBeebies about Jojo and Gran Gran. And it's really worth sharing it with your children on CBeebies. Our children adore it. And it's all about a little girl and her gran and their amazing relationship they have. So if you haven't checked out Jojo and Gran Gran, I'd recommend you go and check it out. It's something Laura's developed, and I'm sure somewhere she was talking about how Gran Gran is actually based on her own sort of growing up with her gran. So really fantastic. So Laura's brilliant. I think she's on Instagram, she's on Twitter, she's on Facebook. Another person I'm a huge fan of, again, this is a bit of an old book, my most recent one's actually at school, is Julie Fisher. If anyone isn't familiar with Julie Fisher's work, she is absolutely phenomenal. And if we go back to the work of Isaacs and Montessori and the McMillan sisters, an amazing book that Julie's written is called Interacting or Interfering. Hope I've got that right in the right way. All about the power of the adult and how often do we interact? And actually, unfortunately, how often do we interfere with learning? But Julie's work is also really important because she does a big focus on the importance of getting year 1 right. And at the moment, year 1 for most children is unfortunately very, very wrong. This is the old version, but I'd really recommend buying the new version of moving on to Key Stage 1. So we've got Julie Fisher, and then a couple more, I promise, and that'll be it. Now, one of these ladies is actually on here tonight. So, Ruth, I hope you're still there. Ruth Moore and Anna Ephgrave. Oh, my goodness. Absolutely inspirational to me. Their work about in the moment planning. Again, you know, going back to Montessori, going back to Isaacs, McMillan. All about the power of the environment, the power of interactions, the importance of brain development. You know, so if you're going to read anything, and why I love this work, why I love these books, because when you speak to Anna and Ruth, they will say to you very clearly, their work is nothing new. And it's not. it's based in this rich heritage of early years that we have in England, and also that they've travelled abroad and learned from around the world. But why for me it's so powerful, this book and this way of working, is because it actually gave me the power to stand up and do what I've wanted to do for years, and what I, as a nursery nurse, I've known is right to do. You know, I was that teacher that for years, you know, would have the focused activity out, and I'd have to do whatever it was, you know, count the bears or whatever on the table, and I would never get any of it done, because I would see something really amazing happening in provision, and I'd leave that activity and I'd go and do something in the construction area or do something in the art area. And then my poor job share would come in, and she'd be like, "Oh, Elaine, how many have you got done this week of the bears activity?" And I'd be like, 2. And I felt terrible. But the reason that I wasn't doing the bears activity was, without knowing, I was actually being completely in the moment. And that's what my training as a nursery nurse and an early years teacher told me was the right thing to do. So Ruth and Anna, phenomenal work that has empowered so many of us. All of these women I'm talking about have really empowered me and inspired me to be better. So thank you to all of you. And then we get on to someone else really, really current who I'd urge you to follow on Insta and Facebook and Twitter. And that is the wonderful Liz Pemberton, aka the Black Nursery Manager. Wow. Right now, Liz is out there, much like Laura, you know, working really hard to challenge things and to challenge the inequalities in society. And Liz does that very bravely and very boldly, and she will stand up and she will ask questions that might make some of us feel uncomfortable. And for that, I love her, because she will not stop and she will keep challenging and making us think. And I think so much of, you know, being a strong, empowering, inspiring woman is making other people stop and think about what they do and challenging them, and maybe making them sometimes feel a bit uncomfortable as we reflect. So I'm a huge fan of Liz, so please get on over and follow Liz everywhere. She's just brilliant. And that finally brings me on, before I do my children's book reviews, of 2 of my favourite Frebellians. So these are people that, you know, are really inspired by the work of Froebel. The first one is my dear, dear friend, Catherine Solly. Catherine's an inspiration to me. She has taught me so much about leadership. She has taught me so much about the importance of risk and challenge and adventure for young children and lifting the lid. So, you know, Catherine Solly, I think she's working on a new version at the moment, but Catherine Solly, absolute inspiration, and really influenced by the work of Susan Isaacs. And finally, my final favourite Rebellion is Dr. Stella Louis. She's fantastic, in a word, and she's the absolute, can't think what the word is now. She's the absolute, she knows everything about schemers. So, you know, if you want to know about schemers, look at Stella's work. And, you know, Stella is such a kind, generous person that Stella actually gifted to my school book. She's done copies of books about schemers for parents, really beautiful little books. And she actually gifted me a whole box of them for my nursery and for my reception children, just because she's such a kind, generous, thoughtful person. So there are so many women out there that inspire me. And then there are other women. There are people like my wonderful friend Kim, who's here, who inspires me every single day. There are women like the fantastic Dr. Sue. You know, I'm so lucky to be surrounded by women who inspire me every day, and the amazing team of women that I work in. So do you know what? Hold tight, girls. We're doing really, really great stuff. And Kim's got a nice little plug in there. Yes, Kim, your early years EYFS seminars are phenomenal. They've got an amazing lineup. So Kim, please put a link in the chat, because I know you're desperate to tell us all about them. But Kim, what you're doing with your seminars is so brilliant, and the range of voices. And a really big part is, you know, I'm talking here about really quite established women. How do we, those of us who are getting a bit older now, how do we pass that baton on? How do we inspire the next generation of, you know, advocates? And that's why I really want to get involved in Instagram. Because apparently it's where all the cool young kids hang, Instagram. So that's why, you know, I wanted to get onto Insta, and I want to connect with some of the younger folk out there. No offence, Kim and Sue, because, you know, we need to pass this baton on. Because we need to challenge what's happening, and it's simply not good enough. So after my whittering on about amazing women, let me share with you my 2 early years books. Did I make a master list of books and authors? No, I didn't yet, Helen. I've not had a moment. I'd like to do that, but I've not had a chance to think. Well, I want to share with you now, Kim, don't have to be sorry. That is what friends are for, my darling. We all have to help each other and look out for each other. Of course, go for it. Share it. Tell the world. You're doing really amazing stuff, and I'm so proud of you, Kim. So well done. Brilliant. Right, so bring you on now to my 2 early years books. Okay? These are books to inspire the children that you work with. I love both of these books because they feature really strong, amazing female leads that challenge us sort of stereotypical views that we have. The first book is, drumroll, Rosie Revere, Engineer. If anyone has seen this one, let me know in the chat. I adore this book. Fantastic rhyming text, all about a little girl who is an engineer, and she can make something out of anything. But quite often they go wrong, and people laugh at her. So this is all about her not giving up. It's a rhyming text. It is American, so you have to, you know, maybe change some of the language. It's about grade 2, for example. But really, really great book. And it's great in the classroom because it gives girls a, you know, quite often we find that, you know, the construction area might be a kind of boys only area. So something like Rosie Revere can really inspire all children to have a go at making something out of anything. And what's really great, I didn't realise this, actually, this is really interesting, especially thinking about today. It says here, there's a historical note at the back of the book, which says that during World War II, millions of women in the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the Soviet Union and other allied nations worked to provide food and equipment needed for the war. Some worked on farms to grow food. Other women built ships, aeroplanes, tanks and jeeps. And with the help of many women, American factories produced more than 300,000 aircraft. So these women helped factories make 300,000 aircrafts, 86,000 tanks, 2 million army trucks. These are powerful women. These are women that are engineers. And in the United States, they were represented by a character called Rosie the Riveter, who wore a scarf and whose slogan was, "We can do it." So Rosie the Riveter is the inspiration for Rosie Revere, Engineer. Just a fantastic book. And what I love about it is that she's actually got an auntie, whoopsie daisy, she's got an auntie who kind of inspires her. And, you know, when it all goes wrong, it's go, come on, keep going, Rosie, keep trying. I mean, just, whoops, I'm not very good at this sharing business. Just the love in this book is just fantastic. Yeah, you're right, Helen. And the women, the female brains of Bletchley Park, you know. So this is a really fantastic book. So if you can get your hands on Rosie Revere, Engineer, she's brilliant. And I think she'll inspire a lot of your girls to have a go at something that perhaps they wouldn't necessarily do. Really wonderful book. Rosie Revere, Engineer by Andrea Beattie and pictures by David Roberts. But again, as I said to you last time, you need to, don't just buy these books blind. They cost money, you know. So get onto YouTube, look it up, watch a read through and see if you fancy it or not. Okay, so have a little look at that one. And then, oh, I love this one, my favourites. This one's a great book. I absolutely adore this book. This book, I'm sure a lot of you might have seen this one. The Fantastic Look Up by Nathan Byron and with pictures by Dapo Adiola. Phenomenal book. Absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't checked out Look Up, I urge you to. And it was wonderful actually on World Book Day to see some postbox being painted yellow with images of this main character on them. I think it was in London, and the guys were there with the postbox. So the main character in this book is the amazing Rocket. Again, a real kind of scientific focus. I love this. It's just brilliant. My children adore it. It's such a great book. It's all about little girl here, Rocket, who's really into space and space travel, and she wants to go and see an asteroid or a meteor shower that's going to be coming to the park. And her brother Jamal is just on his phone all the time, which is why it's called Look Up, because he won't look up from his phone. A lot of children can relate to that. So when you're reading it, you're saying, you know, she's saying to her brother, look up, look up. A lot of them smile because they can recognise that within their own families. And then obviously eventually they look up and they see the meteor shower. But she is such an amazing character because she kind of rallies people up. Talking about inspiration, you know, they go to the supermarket and she gets hold of the tannoy system and tells everybody, come to the park, come to the park. So she is someone who's kind of rallying people up. And then she thinks no one's really listened to her, and then they all turn up to the park at night. So she is Rocket's an inspiration. Why else I love this book is, and that's her brother Jamal, by the way, who is always on his phone. Why else I love this book is that it also refers to a real life astronaut. Hang on a minute, get a bit. Oh, sorry, I'm not very good at this. Good at this, shouldn't I? By now, of all these home learning lessons. Let me get the page ready for you. That's better. It talks about Mae Jemison, who's an African American astronaut. So it's actually got some links to real people the children can learn about. And again, it's breaking some of those stereotypes. There was a great clip I saw once on CBeebies, and I said to children, said to the children, can you draw a doctor? Can you draw a this? Can you draw a that? And they just all drew men for everything. So books like this are phenomenal. So I love Look Up. But again, please check it out on YouTube. First of all, find a read along and see if it's a book for you. And then we have the marvellous Rosie Revere, Engineer. Now that brings us to 7:30. I really hope that you've enjoyed my book club tonight. I'm going to get my thinking cap on for next week. I have got some plans to maybe not be on here by myself at some point. So I am looking for some people to come and help me out. I'm looking for maybe some authors I'm trying to reach out to. And I would love to be able to do some sort of giveaway, really. So I'm working on a few things behind the scenes. But just to say, all of you are such an inspiration. And yeah, just keep on doing what you're doing. I think you're all fantastic. And I hope that everyone has had, a safe and happy day. Helen, yeah, it will be recorded. So yeah, Helen, that would be great. If you would like to make me a list of books, definitely, that'd be brilliant. Any other comments? I'll stay here for a while. But I really hope you found the session useful, and just keep hanging on to those women who inspire us each and every day and whose shoulders we stand upon. And let's think about how we can inspire that next generation. And I think Rosie and Rocket are a really, really great place to start. Thanks so much, everybody. Tell your friends, and come on, bring your friends when we come next. Let's come back together next week, Monday, 7:00. Please tell your friends about it, bring them along. And yeah, stay safe and let me know any thoughts or ideas. I'd love to hear them. And if you're not on the Facebook page yet, come on over. And if you haven't shared KU Official yet, please, please, please. I'm trying to build, I think we're up to about 1,500 followers nearly now. I'd like to get us even bigger. So come on, get onto Insta, tell everybody about KU Official, and let's do something amazing. I know we can. Happy International Women's Day. Stay safe and keep on doing what you do. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very, very much for coming.